roll of members.
D'Amico?
Here.
Troyer?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Bergio?
Here.
Powers? Here. Higgins?
Here. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, approval of minutes of preceding meetings. Number 1, public hearing held on March 24th, 2015.
Motion accept as printed.
Support. So motion accepted as printed, properly supported, under discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Go to item number 2, special council meeting held on March 24th, 2015.
Motion to accept is printed. Support.
The motion made, properly supported, under discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Go to item D, remarks from the audience on any subject matter.
Mayor Coyne, President Patton, all members of this Brook Park Council, and residents here tonight. My name is Rudolph, aka Rudy, Vio, as in Viola. I live at 15550 Paulding Boulevard, residing there for the past 40-some years. I had prepared a talk for tonight about my efforts to have some trees planted in a certain area along the east side of I-71, looking east between Hummel and Brook Park Roads. I say I had another subject that I really intended to talk about tonight. But something else came up just several days ago, which got me so upset that I quickly compiled this topic for tonight's discussion. By the way, I talked about this matter at one of last year's council meetings, and I see no evidence that anything was even considered. The topic is the overabundant population of deer that are roaming all over our Brook Park neighborhoods. We have a beautification committee here in Brook Park whose main goal is by sprucing up and cleaning up our fair city, which is a very commendable goal. But with all those deer roaming throughout our neighborhoods and eating everything and anything colored green, our residents, most of them, are trying to beautify their homes and neighborhoods with landscaping and planting a multitude of flowering selections. But it seems like those hungry deer just love Brook Park's salad bar. So all those individual homeowners' beautifying efforts is all for nothing. My fiancée Estelle and I spend many hours trying to make our homes appealing, and this happens annually, but with those deer freely roaming throughout our neighborhoods and eating any and all green vegetation, it appears that all of our beautification efforts are for naught. For example, just several days ago, Stella and I noticed how nicely all her tulips were coming along. But just 2 days ago, all, and I mean all, her tulips were chomped down and off at the ground level, destroying more than 100 beautiful tulip flowers. Now I suppose all of you can visualize this deer destruction, and maybe you can also realize how we both felt to see what those deer had done. I don't know how friendly or dangerous wild deer are, but can you visualize going behind your garage to put some rubbish into the container and coming face to face with a doe or a fawn lounging back there? We tried yelling and some shooing to maybe scare them into getting out of there. But you know what? They just stared at us as if to say, "Don't bother us." They seem to have no fear. It's as if they're telling us, we were here first and we're not going. On one hand, we're trying to beautify our city, and on the other hand, we're permitting this deer destruction. Have any of you ever witnessed a deer sashaying down one of our neighborhood streets? Well, they seem to have no fear, here again, as if they're telling us, we were here first, and we're not going. So, can you blame Brook Park homeowners refraining from beautifying their properties? We're, Estelle and I, seriously considering digging up all of our landscaping. What's the use? We're only supplying this deer overpopulation with a salad bar, and in the process making them well-fed and healthy and prolific at reproducing even more deer. Since the state or the county or our city can't do anything to solve this ever-growing large population of deer destroying everyone's landscaping, we, and Estelle and I, have come to the conclusion that the deer have won. One more concern, since this was typed, I see in the Plain Dealer that the Cleveland Metro Parks have hired teams of 20 sharpshooters to cull some of the deer surplus roaming in several surrounding parks. And evidently, they are possibly helping to reduce the deer overpopulation problem. These sharpshooters certainly wouldn't be permitted to come into the suburbs and start shooting. I'm sorry, but I do have just a little more to add since I saw this letter maybe a week or so ago and had it printed. I've been in contact with our local Brook Park animal control officer, and he came over one recent morning just in time to view the deer in our backyard, having breakfast. He told us what we've already been told, and that he is helpless as this is strictly a state problem and not for our local town or city to try to control. He did suggest that I should contact our city hall and council and find out what they can or cannot do. Well, I've been up here before mentioning this growing problem, and apparently this council's hands are tied since nothing can or should or will be done at the local level. So it appears that our suburb claiming to have this animal problem would or should or can apply to the Ohio State Office of ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. If it is the state's responsibility to correct or solve or alleviate this ever-growing problem, perhaps an official request from our city and our council can or may or might get some kind of aid or conclusion to our city's deer overpopulation problem. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot to mention another and really more important reason for us to try to eliminate these free roaming critters. And that important reason is disease. Yes, it's true. These free roaming animals are carriers of a disease called Lyme disease. These deer are carrying on their bodies a small flea-sized bug called a tick. This additional problem is really something to contemplate and really eradicate. These deer are always scratching and itching and rubbing, trying to rid themselves of these ticks. And then they fall off. Where? When you go out in your yard, work in your garden, when your pet dog or cat meanders out in the backyard, guess what? Well, the ticks have found another warm-blooded host to bite and transmit the bacterium causing Lyme disease. If you're not too concerned about these deer eating your flowers, bushes, and newly planted garden, maybe you'd better be more concerned about these deer ticks hopping around in your backyard waiting to pounce on you or your pet. The bite of a deer tick is a lot worse than a flea or mosquito bite. Believe me, I looked it up. I'd like to thank this council for giving me all this time to talk here tonight, and to also thank everyone here for coming and listening and paying attention to the concerns of our city council and to Brook Park residents. God bless America, and that includes all of us here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy.
Hello, my name is Jill Markusik. I live at 13911 Albert Drive. I want to thank Mr. Jameson for answering the questions I had last week, or at the last meeting. I want to thank you for the public records request information. I would like to know if you can explain why, with all of the road work we need in our city, why we are spending money helping to repair 130th from Brook Park Road to Lorraine, instead of using that money in our city repairing some of our city streets. I also stopped the mayor at the last meeting on his way out because he made a comment that kind of got me thinking a little bit, but it did. He said that he would like $115 from each resident to help with the budget. I was wondering if that was each personal resident or each household, first off. I would also like to know why, when the whole tax thing that everything was going on, why none of that, I remember getting all of those flyers and papers and all kinds of other mail and that, but I never actually saw that in any of my information. I think better PR may have helped make that go a little bit further, and we could have maybe stopped the services and layoffs, or at least some of them that has happened. And I'd also like to know about this budget. Mr. Single did a really good job of explaining stuff to me, but I noticed when I'm sitting in the audience there, and all of you are up here talking, the mayor is talking about the budget and how we need money. I have no problem with any of that. I know that we haven't had a tax increase in quite a few years. I understand all of that. What I want to know is why he's up there, no offense, but he's playing bad cop, and all the council people and everybody else just sit there kind of sedentary and not supporting or not supporting him. You're just kind of, it's kind of like you become oblivious to me. That's what it looks like to me. I understand financial issues. Everybody has them. But if I had gotten a piece of paper in my mailbox delivered, or somebody would have handed it to me that came knocking on the door saying, do vote for this, don't vote for this. If somebody would have said $115 more per household in the city of Brook Park, considering there hasn't been a tax increase in this many years, will help keep our budget, bring us up to where we need to be, create minimal layoffs, keep our seniors with the things that they are needing, I would have said, you know, that's a good point. But nobody said that to me. None of you. And I'm really ticked off because right now we are in this crisis. All we're hearing about is all of this bad news when if somebody would have came to the doors of the residents in the city of Brook Park and said, we have not had a tax increase in this many years. We need $115 per household to get our city back up and running and in a comfortable living zone that everybody in the world wants. I am sure every single resident would have been behind you. And I'm very angry and I'm very disappointed that not one of you had the guts to stand up and say that to me or anybody else in this city. Because if you would have said it to one person, like if you would have said it to me, I would have been door to door, I'd have been telling everybody. And I'm angry at you. I'm angry at all of you. Thank you.
For snow removal. Now we've budgeted $80,000, and if you figure the $15,000 that we did before, that'd be $95,000. Why are we going with private contractors instead of hiring seasonal workers? If you don't want to pay the employees we have, get seasonal workers, and the post office does it, the airport does it, the Cleveland Indians do it, the Cleveland Browns do it. It's done all over the world, including the military brings in seasonal workers. At $95,000, you have approximately 9,000 hours, man-hours, that would buy to do the snow removal. You'd have enough money for the seniors. You'd have enough money to do the sidewalks if there was only a quarter-inch of snow out there. Why are we insisting that we use private contractors? Is there a conflict of interest somewhere that we don't know about? Why the change? You put $80,000 in the budget, roughly approximately $40,000 per person that's senior. I'd like it explained. I don't understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move the agenda to 8 reports from standing committees. We'll start with Aviation Environmental. Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing on the agenda tonight for Aviation and Environmental.
Thank you, Councilman. Go to Finance Committee. Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Control held a meeting tonight and approved 22 items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Go to Legislative Committee. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislative Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Parks and Recreation. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Parks and Recreation has one item on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Planning Committee. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was no meeting since my last report of the April 6th meeting. The next meeting will be May 4th, and I'll have a full report then for that council meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Safety Committee. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no items on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Service Committee. Councilwoman Powers.
No items on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Board of Zoning Appeals. Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next Board of Zoning Appeals meeting will be May 2nd, providing there's applications that are made. Thank you.
Good item F, reports from special committees. Southwest General Health Center Trustee Councilman Salvatore.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. We haven't had a meeting since my last report, so I'll have a report for you at our next council meeting.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Berea Board of Education Representative Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a report. The superintendent, Mr. Shepard, spoke to the Ohio House of Representatives, the Finance and Appropriations Committee, April 15th. He submitted testimony on concerns ending the...
Councilman, can you pick your microphone up a little bit?
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you hear me back there? Everybody good? Okay. He submitted testimony on concerns ending the tangible personal property tax reimbursements to school districts. Berea schools went from $5.4 million to from $8.7 million, the highest to lowest in tangible personal property reimbursement tax. The Berea City School District, Mr. Shepard stated, since 2008, property values have dropped $2 million. He also told the committee expenditures have been cut by consolidated buildings, reducing staff, combining services, as he asked for the House to leave the TPP at its current levels or return them to the levels promised when the tax was phased out. The second thing is, as most have probably heard, the state school board voted April 13th to eliminate the so-called 5 of 8 rule that set minimum number of school nurses, librarians, counselors, and our teachers. The districts now will be able to, like our local Berea School District, will be able to do as many as they see fit for their district. Tough call there, but we'll see how that goes. And third, the 23rd Annual Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame will be April 30th. 8 former students and staff will be inducted. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. If no items on G or H tonight, we'll go to item I, reports and communications from the mayor. Mayor Coyne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vial, it's always a pleasure to have you come here and inform us of issues that we have in the city. Dennis Patton and I, the council president, are West Enders. And if we only saw one deer in our yard, we'd kind of be grateful. Your experience about the salad, I had 13 of my abrevieties eaten a year ago. And I didn't know what to do. I was perplexed, went online, and then they made me aware of the service. It cost me $200 every year to spray my bushes with 2 coatings. The guy looks like Ghostbusters. He comes out and puts one on making them sick and eating it, and one to deter it. So we're aware of your situation, believe me. And their fear is, the only thing that scares them, when I come home from a council meeting, I pull in my car, it doesn't scare them. The garage door opener is the only thing that scares them. They have no fear of being around anyone. We're trying to work, the mayors are trying to get something together to address this problem, you know, and again, we have a lot of rules and regulations in our way. So it's not that we don't know about it and the council doesn't know about it. What do we do about it? We have enough hunters in Brook Park. If we could have an open season here, the problem would be taken care of, except everybody's sightings and picture windows and other things might get shot up for people that miss. So again, we're aware of it, we hear you, and believe me, there are areas of cities around the, for instance, the cemetery that have, you know, vast population problems as well, so we'll keep plugging at it. Joan, it was the nicest thing that was said about me in a long time, bad cop. I'm playing the bad cop. Well, tonight you'll probably see some council members playing the bad cop because they're probably not too happy with the mayor this evening. I would beg to differ with you on a couple of things. Greg Singal and I published very thorough reports. We had a campaign committee to put out very clear what the needs of the city are and how they have to be addressed in the future. And we'll probably have some discussion this evening here. And it is clear that we've done a yeoman's job here in this budget. We're down to about 140 employees. And unfortunately, when you say no, you know, comes back to the bad cop, I got to deliver the services to you. And no one wants their service cut. Not the seniors, not the young people, not a myriad of things that we have. And if you read some out, I have them for you, I'll give you some. As we put in there is, Jimmy Mancini always likes to say this, what kind of city do you want to live in? The second part of the equation is, how much are you willing to pay for it, because those workers that were once at the Ford plant that provided all this to us are gone, and they're probably never coming back again. Okay. Somebody have another question out there? Okay, it's important that folks hear this. All right, give me an example, and you'll read in the publication or you'll see on these posts. Ford lands 200 jobs at Brook Park, Ohio. We did an analysis, and we are so grateful to have those jobs. Those jobs, Dennis will tell you as a former official there, are going to be paid $15.49 an hour. And doing the calculation through the tax department, we will take in, out of those new jobs, $48,000. We're grateful to have the $48,000. It's nowhere near what we need to deliver the services that we want. And I'm sure many of you got a publication from us talking about how we're going to have to charge the way we pick up yard waste and bulk waste in the city. And I'm sure we'll have a great debate about this up here. In order for us to make it on the operating side, we have to change the way we deliver services to the town. Okay? And no one wants to talk about outsourcing or privatization. If we don't do this, we're not going to survive. Mr. Peterlin over there talked about the seniors, where he gets his calculations from. I have no idea, because I haven't seen anything close to them. We want to help our seniors live here. Okay? I'm a senior. While I don't need the help, we want to do that. We've always done that, but how could we do that? We certainly didn't charge you. Barb, you made a point. The last time there was an increase in the city income tax, 1999. 1999. Okay? We're going to have a town hall on April the 30th. I wanted to have a discussion about these issues, a frank discussion, no literature, no publications, no people hiding behind anonymous names or committees or anything else, because this community has to have that discussion. Quite frankly, I'm disappointed that folks aren't up here asking for my head, 1,000 of them. I'm disappointed in that, because that's the kind of discussion that we have to have up here, an honest and frank discussion by elected officials telling you what the facts are. If we change the way we operate in privatizing some of our services within the existing budget with minimal growth, if we stay around 140 full-time employees, we can make it. But as Barb, you point out, or Joan, I'm sorry, you pointed out, we want to do a little bit more than that. We want to do a little bit more than that. So we asked you, you talked about it was $115. Was the average on the property tax? What was that for? What was it for? Recreation department and senior services. Some people, who cares about it? Who cares about it? A lot of people do. A couple thousand senior families in this town that care a lot about it. There's a couple thousand rec families that care about it. So what happened? You're going to hear this statement. The mayor's closing the rec center room by room. We were able to lease out 2 portions of that center to generate rent for us. The third one didn't work. Okay? But we have a proposal coming before council on energy savings. We might be able to have the money through this savings program that pays for it to redo the roof at the rec center and redo all of the heating units, because I'll tell you this, if we cannot do it, you heard it here first, if we can't provide heat and cooling to our rec center, we cannot keep it open. And that's why we're looking at consolidating everything. These are discussions that you don't see, granted, but that's what's going on as we're moving around here. And I hope that more folks come and talk about this at the forum we're going to have, because again, you need to read what we send you because it's important. And we did a newsletter in the beginning of the year. Everything that I'm talking about was in here, evaluating various things that we need to do. Okay, these are truthful. There's no magic number. I have a councilman that asked me, and I have an anonymous person that asked me, what did I do with the $1.6 million that I saved? It's not in a drawer anymore. We're not deficit spending with that money. And we painstakingly went through these things. Our greatest problem up here, and I respect all my colleagues, they have a very, I believe all of them have the goodwill of the city at heart. But it's very difficult to run for election when you're not giving anybody anything. And this election, it cannot be that way. You got to help give to us. You got to help us. You got to look in the mirror and say, what do I want from my town? Look at the streets. Anybody proud of the streets they're driving down? No. Anybody out there tonight? No. I don't think so. We need just a quick perusal right now to fix degenerated streets in the town. I wish we just had Chuckles. We don't. There's about $10 million. The engineer and I, the service director, walked around there. We can't do that in this budget or the limited growth we're going to have in this budget for the next decade. The citizens of Brook Park, if nothing else, they're going to have to come to the plate, and I would talk to council about putting on this November an increase in the city income tax for capital improvements only. Not for my inflated double, triple dipping salary, not for my $3 to $5 to $2 million cabinet that doesn't exist, not all this crap. The reality is, for a city, we need to have this, because if you won't do that, if you won't help me in this council, we're just spinning our wheels, wasting your money, and quite frankly, wasting our time. We need to attack this problem, and if you will help us, and you will support this, it's the perfect measure. So when someone's coming to your door saying, any problems or complaints, wait a minute, what do you think? Do you think we need the money to fix the streets? And if you say no as a candidate, well, how are you going to do it? How do you propose to do it? That's our problem here. No one wants to deal with this. And you have groups of folks, God bless them, they have the right to express what their opinions are. They happen to be dead wrong. And who's going to pay for that in the end? You are. You just heard Jimmy Mancini give a report from the schools. How's those evaluations going? Besides the cut and things like that, we are cutting our own throats in this town because our salvation only belongs with us. There's nobody else that's going to come here and help us out. So I hope that you come on the 30th. I hope we have this discussion. I would like council and us to argue about a lot of things, because we have fundamental differences probably about how we're going to do it. The wonder years of Brook Park is gone, and it's never coming back again. And I think you heard me say this $3 million number. We need $160 million in payroll investment in this town to really get what we really need all over the place so we can continue to have the wonder year service. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look around you. Even the communities that have done well or seem to have surpassed us are all outsourcing things because of the cost. And our major problem with why we're proposing changing doing things is because we're not going to have those employment numbers anymore. Even if we grow a little bit with some jobs, we can't afford to have those kinds of numbers delivering services. But we can if we change and do combinations. And finally, Mr. Peterlin, to address this question, I believe that we can deliver these services to our seniors by a voucher program, through private contractors, because it costs less. And when you raise these seasonal people, that should be for all the unions, not just the service workers. Not just the service workers. And finally, let me say this, okay? My difference about this, why I suggested that we outsource this, was for a couple different reasons. Number one, I believe long-term on the capital side, where our problems are, it'll save us a lot of money. It won't save us any money this year, because we've already cut the employees. But how many times, every single day, we can't fix our catch basins. We can't clean our sewers. We can't keep our parks clean. We have to be able to deploy what existing people we have left where the needs of the city is. So I hope we have this debate, because it's healthy that you hear this so you see what decisions are made. And everyone's got great ideas. At the end of the day, the bad cop has to deliver services to the town. That's what I'm elected to do. And that's what I'm going to do as long as I'm here. So I thank you for coming, and I hope that you come on the 30th, and I hope they read the solid, I hope they read those notices. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the mayor. Mayor, we talked about just 2 points here. I understand the capital improvements we have to go through. We talked about that when we did the original budgets. But I guess the thing is, we spoke about privatization, you and I, originally, a while ago, and I gave you my opinion about privatization. And one of the great things that you have is a story. As you were a garbage man, you became a councilman, you became mayor. And one of those things is that these great jobs in the city, I told you, as the person I am, didn't want to let those jobs go. And I think that the service would be inferior and people would notice the difference at the time. You had a difference of opinion, granted, and we talked about that a little more. Now it comes up to yard waste, and it comes down to, at this point in time, we had the discussion on privatization, but we didn't have this discussion on yard waste, and I got the mailer in my mailbox like everybody else did. Granted, you had it at the luncheon, I apologize, could not make it that time. Otherwise, though, we balanced the budget, we cut the deficit, we put programs in place, we went ahead and placed money in economic development, and we had money that we don't spend on research like we all know in 6 years. We moved money into sanitation, we placed money into bringing back some service department workers, and as of June 1st, we're not going to pick up yard waste anymore. So I guess I want to know how this came about and why we can't, what we're doing, and we gave money and tools to do the job at the time, continue to do it that way rather than change it abruptly without us knowing first and no discussion. And also, my opinion is, it may be wrong, I don't know, the service department had been enough, maybe like Brian Higgins and Dennis Patton, but place the grass in the blue containers and recycle the, the garbage for the recyclables, place on the lawn like we used to, and try to get through this until we can figure out a better plan.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. To my knowledge, Council made no appropriations for additional employees in the service department. It's the same number. And the fact of the matter is this: we can find a lot of different ways around it. And clearly, you're a union person, and absolutely, I have a profound respect for people who pick up refuse, because I understand what it is. The reality is, there's not a city around us that is picking this up with their own groups. Everyone is outsourcing it. And from my standpoint, again, we had a discussion. One of the things I will say, this is the kind of thing we should have at a much longer meeting. You heard me say then that we would not have the personnel to do this. And to my view, better maximizing service, and we're looking at the total service department, of work that has to be accomplished, the best thing for us is to move forward and privatize this service. It'll have no effect on the people of the city, it'll have everything. The other issue is on the capital side. Had I been here as mayor before, if I had never left, I was going to privatize the rubbish collection like everybody else around us and utilize that service personnel to do other work. The jobs have already gone. We've already laid them off, and I have no indication that I'm bringing anybody back. Because we don't, to me, that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem that we need to address. So the fact of the matter, we had short discussion about this, not a lot of discussion with this, but I raised to you my concern about picking up the yard waste. I very clearly did. And as a matter of fact, even in the newsletter going back when we, beginning of the year, talked about how the way we have to change the way we deliver services. This thing about me coming up through the ranks and all those kinds of things is a wonderful story. It's not going to exist anymore today. Okay, again, unless you have a main influx of, if we had money, I would still make the recommendation that we outsource this work because long-term cost effective to the city on the capital side. Right now, those trucks, Louis will talk in his report about what we had to put into them this year on the one-armed bandits and what we have dealing with the older trucks that we have that are failing. So this year alone, by making the outsourced deal, we relieved our capital fund of about $250,000. That to me makes sense because the longer we put this on, Councilman, we're going to have to buy a truck or two here in a year. So that's another $500,000 you're going to have spread out there for 5 years. So for me, from the capital side and the operating side, particularly when we can redeploy our employees to do much needed work here, to me makes the most sense.
Mr. Chairman. Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the chair. Mayor, we did put monies into the budget to deploy 2 people to be brought back. You do not know that?
No, sir, you never had a discussion with me and I'm not bringing them back.
But you do know we put money.
I do not have any idea because you had no discussion with me about it whatsoever. None.
Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have discussion with the mayor in regards to privatization and on behalf of council as the pro tem. First, let me address a remark that Joan made. Joan, unfortunately, $115 is what the mayor is referring to, maybe the average home might pay in a levy. I question the first place, most cities want to pass a levy, they put a safety levy on, they put a police levy on, a fire levy on, that type of levy, they don't put a rec levy on. I had discussion with the mayor, I disagreed with the strategy of that, but I'm not sure what the mayor's strategy was at that time. Second of all, on the same ballot was a income tax increase too, from 2 to 2.5. Which I support. To this day I support. It's obvious this community needs more revenue. I've never shied from that. But having said that, it was not just one thing, it was both things. So it wasn't just 115, it might have been 115 to some people, but maybe not to others. As far as Mr. Peterlin goes, Mr. Peterlin, there's contracts that the labor's 1099 union has. You can't just bring in seasonal workers when you feel like it. When you have laid off members, they have to come back before you're even able to bring back seasonal workers. This council did put a couple of laborers back into the budget when we took the privatization out. The mayor did put privatization of rubbish in our budget. It was brought in front of council. We had about 3 weeks to pass this budget. After polling council, I asked the mayor to take a back seat to that privatization, get the budget passed, take a look at it in the future. I told him I think at this point in time to make some rubbish changes in this community after everything else that we've had around here. You know, everybody, I can't go through the laundry list, but you know, we had changes, you know, home days, not having them here now through the rumor mill that I guess we are going to have rides again. The mayor hasn't communicated that to me, but you know, we have home days, we don't have home days. Senior snow plowing, maybe vouchers. Senior bus rides taken away, given back. Close a fire station, open a fire station. We're going to talk about privatizing paramedics. Now we're not going to privatize paramedics. Closing the pool, open the pool. Now the pool's closed. Maybe a Thor is going to come in here. And I'm not going to criticize the mayor for all that because he's got a job that, quite frankly, I didn't run for. So having said that, here we are today where we're at. But this council asked the mayor just to take a step back and let's get the budget passed, and then we'll take a look at the privatization. We had a couple-week period to pass this budget, and nobody really took a good look at Republic's numbers. I run the community of Parma. We've had Republic over there for 24 and a half years. I think Republic's over in the community Mr. Patton works there. But you also have to remember, when you look at revenues, this city, we'll agree with the mayor 100%, it has been long-standing somewhat spoiled because of our Ford Motor Company revenues. The community I work in, they have a police levy, they have a fire levy, they have a front footage fee for sewer assessments, they have a 2.5% income tax. Over in Parma Heights, they have a 3% income tax. They charge for rubbish pickup. I'm not sure if they have levies over there, but you know, these are the differences of our communities, and sooner or later we're going to have to pay for some of the things if we want to have a nice community to live in. And I think that's the goal to everybody. This, I am disappointed though in the mayor, this yard waste stuff. By the way, Mr. Mayor, I've never gotten a flyer. I've patiently waited every single day hoping to get mine. If no one knows where I live on Elmdale. My backyard faces Park and Sullivan Drive. So I figured once I got my flyer, my phone would ring off the wall from Park and Settlement people. They have big yards. They'd have to make multiple trips to what I look at as a failed plan of people taking stuff down to a service garage. So I have addressed the people that have called me. The plan's ridiculous. The plan's not doable. I looked at this as something that the mayor's hid from this council until the day of his State of the City on the 13th. He mentioned it there. I read it on Cleveland.com later on that afternoon, and the flyers hit the mail the next day. So this is, I think, a move by the mayor to bring people out in arms. Like he said, he's disappointed that people not hanging out this door so he can have a forum to address our deficiencies in our budget here in the city. And where I can applaud you for that, Mayor, trying to get people out so you can have your forum, I think you went about it the wrong way with this yard waste, because quite frankly, that program is not doable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to touch on that subject also. I got numerous calls from residents, and many of them were seniors. I believe all of them were actually seniors, but they're concerned, they're upset, they're frustrated, and many of them are asking, how am I going to do this? Some of them don't even drive. So my take on this is it's a real hardship, but it's unfairly and disproportionately affecting seniors. And I think that's what I had the most problem with. I'm willing to take a look at privatization at a later date, but I thought if we can get through 4 months helping the seniors, I prefer that. So I'm hoping that we can accomplish that. I think that the money is in the budget. I talked to Greg the other day. I think that's there, and I don't have all the numbers, but I think we can do that. I just like to see this happen to give the seniors a break. This came on so abruptly that nobody had time to think about how they're going to do it. I think it's going to be a hard time for them. That's my comments. Thank you.
Councilman Vancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll make it pretty brief. I know the mayor wants to speak. I know you all know that's where I came from. Out of my 30 years there, probably rubbish 20 years. One of my former co-workers here today, Mark Morgano, and Mark, like me, was a dedicated worker, and on the aspect of that, you know that we went the extra mile, and I did a lot of times, and I would do it again. My only concern is, you know, well, I know they had mentioned other cities do Republic. Well, like I told some people that called, and I got calls, and most people were pretty good. I feel bad for some of the seniors that might have to take their rubbish down, but they're making contingency plans, mulch, whatever, throw it in the rubbish. I heard it all. I guess my point is, what if this Republic doesn't work necessarily just for Brook Park? And I thought the mayor said one thing that was important, that I think that you know, maybe it should have been discussed a little more, gone into length a little more, but you know, it was a heck of a service, you know, and we were proud to give it. But I also agree also that you know, we have other issues too. We got sewer. I get tree lawn calls, snow plowing calls, many calls, the street calls. Streets, well, I covered that on my questions to the mayor the past 2 council meetings. If you were here, you heard them. It was almost like a repeat question, the streets. streets are terrible. He said he needed 10 million. I said, I need 20 million in my ward. So, yeah, so on that, I mean, it's a good service. Maybe it's something like my colleague Carl Bergio said, maybe discussed a little more until we get it rectified and get it right. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this nice, neat flyer that the mayor put out. We had our last meeting April the 7th, and these came to council on April the 8th. And then a day or two later, we started getting them. I started getting phone calls. And yes, both of these men talked about the seniors, and senior means anyone over 55, over 60. What about the people who are living alone that are over 80 and over 90? And how are they going to get their rubbish down to the service garage? Because some of them are in wheelchairs and walkers and so forth. And not only that, but what about the young people? The hours are 7 to 3, Monday through Friday, and 3 hours on Saturday. If you're working, and you're working Monday through Friday, daytime hours, you cannot possibly get your garbage there unless you take some hours off from work. And you cannot get there on Saturday in that 3-hour window, because how many people do we have working in the city? 5,000? Can you imagine 5,000 people lined up trying to get their garbage delivered to the service center on Saturday? It's just totally ridiculous to even think of it. And I would like to ask through the chair to the finance director, just what would it cost approximately just for the yard waste pickup?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Powers, the privatized?
No,
What's it cost us currently?
when you broke down last winter what it would cost for senior snow plowing, and you had a figure for that. So do you have a figure for what it would cost just for yard waste pickup? And go ahead.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Powers, I do not have it broke down for yard waste pickup. A figure for that.
Can I answer that for you?
Would you say that it was about?
Mayor's willing to answer. Go ahead, Mayor.
You're talking 6 men every day, plus the landfill costs, disposal costs. Okay, and if I can't address you in particular, I want to address my fine friend Brian Higgins in a little while. I think it's ridiculous too, because the reality is, simple solution to this issue is to outsource this work. It's cost effective. Okay, as a matter of fact, under this proposal that I made, okay, that Republic, who we take our garbage to now, would buy our trucks, buy our cans. You wouldn't know the difference, and it wouldn't be assessed. A lot of people think they're being assessed. It wouldn't cost you $1. Okay, and we can pussyfoot around all the things. The reality is, we need to change the way we deliver that service. Period. So it's not simply hiring 2 guys, and I think council should understand in this budget, we have a one-time little infusion here of some sound insulation money that allows us to do some things. So this isn't, next year, you're going to be facing the same thing. And to call back workers, unless through attrition that number will go back again, but we shouldn't be in the garbage business, and many folks sitting up here know that. And the community should know that. Nobody's in it anymore. And the issue that Jimmy raised over there about what happens, I don't know of a city that I'm aware of since the 1970s that went away from their private collection. And finally, let me say this. I have a great deal of respect for Brian Higgins. I think I had some role in him being in public life as he is, maybe. I think that's why he's aggravated with me. I don't know. But I don't need a ploy to do anything, Brian. The reality is you know this. You have to have a notification thing. And I think one thing where I'm going to agree with Councilman Troyer here possibly, that maybe we should have one meeting a month that's a caucus only, because there's a lot of things up here that we do pretty fast. But my thrust is, I'm disappointed because I thought more people would read it and come up here and could hear. I hope they all come on the 30th so we can discuss all these issues: safety, service, the operation of the city, what revenues we need and how, because you need to know that. I also want, there's one thing I forgot. We're going to live stream that meeting. And council's been after me since I came back here to get our meetings on some form of media so people can watch them. Brandon Reynolds is here today. If anyone watches it online, he puts it on there. So there's a box that we're buying that only costs $500, Mr. Chairman. There's a Wi-Fi issue in this building here, but for the price of buying that box and 2 small cameras, we can stream these meetings live for somewhere about $250 to $300 a month, where people can stay at home and see this. And I think will be more helpful to everybody. And I think it's important that we have these differences in these debates. All I can bring to you is my personal experience, and what I'm trying to do here I take very seriously. So I'm not trying to have a ploy with anybody, and I try to put out as much information that I can. And quite frankly, I thought we would have more discussion. I did have a lengthy discussion with you, Brian, and I thank you for that, about this before when we were looking at privatization. Quite frankly, all we had was one very short meeting because no one seemed to want to really talk about it. So in the vein here, we want to look at this. I got legislation that I'll introduce tonight, and hopefully it'll be properly assigned, and we can talk about all of these things.
Mr. Chairman.
Continue, Councilwoman.
In 2013, we've only been here a little over a year, but in 2013, all our city services were intact. Our roads didn't look so bad. All our garbage was being picked up. In 2014, all our garbage was being picked up, and the first half of our winter, the snow was plowed. And now it's 2015, and we have about $500,000 less in this budget than we had last year. And that $500,000, we saved over $500,000 in, almost $500,000 in PERS payments. So, and we laid off 17 people. So with all those layoffs, and with not having that expense to PERS anymore, and with having practically the same money in the budget, I cannot understand how we cannot fund grass cutting and the rest of it, because it isn't just grass cutting. Yard waste means you've got to haul your tree branches and everything else over there. But back to the dollars and cents. If we had enough money to do it in 2013, we had enough money to do it in 2013, 14, now it's 2015. We've got more money, fewer people, so we should have enough money to do it. And now that we have closed the pool, we had 17 lifeguards. So we're not paying those 17 lifeguards anymore. And I think the finance director Sengel said last year that snow plowing would cost us about $70,000. So if we assume that grass pickup would cost us around $70,000, any of those lost employees or the loss of all those lifeguards that were paid between $7.50 and $15 per hour, and we got 44 basketball ball game athletic directors, helpers. So I don't want to take anything away from the children. Don't want to take anything away from the seniors. With this money that we have and the fewer employees, I don't think we should have to take anything away.
It's not an addition to. The $1.6 million is not an addition to. It's reducing expenses. You don't realize how much money we cut out of the operation of the recreation center? You read your budget? several $100,000, okay? So therefore, in order for us to get into condition, I'm not going to leave this community without its reserve intact, without delivering services within a reasonable growth amount, if we have growth at all. So you got through 1 year with all of these things. And they were mostly done with layoffs. And as I told you, we don't have the personnel to do this. We can deliver services at a reasonable amount with quality by making some changes. I've said that since the day I walked in here. All right? That's where we need to get. But in order to do that, we can't convince the public if we're not convinced ourselves. I don't think you believe a thing that I say. I don't think you believe a thing that Greg says. All right? That's not my fault. But all I'm saying to you is this: if we don't change, this problem is not going to go away. It's going to resurface next year, and we separate the capital side of it. The capital thing, I have to tell you, I don't think there's anything the council or I can do to generate the kind of money we need on the capital side. Okay? So I'm willing to keep doing things progressively. You know, we got to get out of this 1990 mode and get into the 21st century.
Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the kind words, I think.
I love you.
You know, along the way you use the word argue and debate. You know, I think that's where part of the problem comes in here. I rather use the terms discuss and share ideas. So I guess one of the questions I have for you then, Mayor, why is it that it was such a big secretive thing, this informational brochure that was going out, that it wasn't shared with any council members, including when Mr. Bergio asked our service director the week before about yard waste pickup, that he said, oh yeah, brochure's coming out, but not one mention of this. It's not an insignificant change. It's a pretty major change to the way we're doing business around here. Why any of that wasn't shared with us? Like I say, you had your State of the City on the 13th. That flyer hit the mail on the 14th. That means them rules were printed up at the printer, at the mail house, already ready to go. Why the big secret, Mayor?
There is no secret whatsoever.
Sure, there's
no secret whatsoever. You, more than anybody else, should understand what the situation is. Our refuse collection should be outsourced, and you know it. The fact of the matter is, the change in any operations of the city, when we got the flyer done, we went through new. As a matter of fact, there's a mistake. It's supposed to be 7 o'clock to 7:30. Having said that, we need to talk about a real, and I agree with you. I'm talking about the people of the city to discuss this, because we have all kinds of people out there debating things. We have never had a debate since I've been up there with all of them. We've discussed our issues. Okay? We've discussed our issues. I'm continuing to do so. But if we can find a better way, I'm all for it. But I'm just saying to you, I don't want to waste time and waste effort and waste money not getting to the end result that there's an inevitability about some of the things we have to do, is all I'm saying to you. So, discussion all the way. I do have a lot, but I happen to be a little fondy. I like your wife better, but I'm fondy.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, it's going to sound redundant, but I'm taking it a little further this time. You mentioned quite a few times you saved $1.6 million in reducing payroll. We also know that we saved $432,000, I believe, off of not having a PERS payment. That comes to over $2 million. Our budget last year, at the end of the year, was $20.3 million, I believe, close to $20.3 million. We had the $80,000 surplus end of last year, and our budget that we passed this year was roughly about that same, about $20,300,000. So the question is, you know, where did the $2 million go? I mean, if you cut $2 million, how come the budget's the same? Actually, your budget would have been 20.8 million originally.
Well, I'll explain to you, because the expenditures are just about level. The only unknown is, well, how do we get the 80,000 from the year before? Mostly by the contribution of the employees to their health care, and there were no raises given. So the expenditures are basically flat. So our goal was to get the 3.7 million in reserve, spend what we were taking in, and provide some programs to the town on, you know, in my view, us spending parking tax money to operate is still wrong. All right? Still wrong. So that's all part of that equation. So the fact is, that's how we got to where we are today. And we're still short in our reserve policy. And that's going to be, and every year, let's put it this way. I mean, there are still issues out there that you're not going to agree with me about, that I thought we would be saving another $500,000 on consolidation of fire services in this town. Okay? So therefore, there's a lot more to be done here, and these are the discussions that need to be had with this community going forward. At the end of the day, we have to take the direction from them, whether we agree with it or not. So you are under some thought process that this 1.6 million or 400,000 is in a drawer someplace. It is not. It is not. And my original proposal to the council was that we privatize these services because we had reduced the numbers, and we should not increase those numbers. We should not. Now, if the unions will entertain the part-time, and I mean all of them, not just one of them, I'd be willing to take a look at that short term. But I'm still telling you that at the end of the day, particularly in the service situation, the city should outsource that, and we should put in a central, in a unique situation here in our city to provide fire service. And I think Brian brought up about the privatization. I'm 100% behind it. And I've had discussions with council members about it, and I also, usually, I have a pretty good reading, and the reason that I did what I did, so we get the budget passed. But we need to continue to have that discussion, because that is still a very large chokehold on the operation of the city, and has been for quite some time, of centralizing our services. So there are still discussions to have. So in my view, there are still very weak budget considerations that we're doing for reasons right now that don't make a lot of sense to me, but enable us to go forward. And so you know everything was in this when I put it out.
Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, two quick comments and a question. That when I had made that statement about when you can't go back, and you yourself said trucks cost $250,000. So if we go to Republican years down the road, we want to go back, well, $250,000 now, cost of living, everything else, imagine what the trucks would be. So that's why probably a lot of cities, if they don't like it, it's probably something they can't even look at. But I am open for discussion on any issue to move this city forward, so you know. And that applies to all. And the one question that I do have, you had mentioned at the service garage on the layoffs that through attrition, through people leaving for whatever reason, workman's comp or work disability, that them people laid off would be called back first. Does that still stand true?
Yes, we have an agreement with the union. All right. The fact is, all of our people are replaced, except one. Okay, because we have good folks, and that is our plan, and that is the agreement that I have with the union. Okay, and again, I can remember this back when I worked for the service department. You know, what's going to happen there? Well, who knows what's going to happen? At the end of the day, you can lease trucks, you can get equipment back. This equipment, because of its use, and while it's not relatively old, we still got 5 years, Louis, to pay on the trucks. The fact of the matter is that that's going to be a cost. They're going to have to be replaced. And I believe that either this council or this mayor, maybe not us, but somebody's going to move to that area because it makes the most sense. Your sensitivity employees, believe me, I have.
I know.
Believe me.
They're not all happy where they're at.
No one
They like
likes
to
the
be here.
success story of Brook Park better than me. I had Grant Siegel talking to me today about when we lost the Marines. Okay. And he wanted to know why the community responded the way it did. We are a city that was built by veterans on the GI Bill. I'm part of it. That's how I came here. I understand our emotions. Okay, as the mayor of this city, along with many members of this council, we provided more services to our seniors and our kids than any city in America. And it's painstaking for me not to be able to do that anymore in the fashion that we used to be able to do it. We can do it again if we think smart and do right. Okay? That's what we have to do. Can we ever be again, I don't see that growth. I just don't see it. That example of Ford, hey, we get another 200. Maybe. I was over in that plant, I was telling Dennis, I couldn't believe how many workers used to be involved in the assembly of those engines, and to see those small pods with the robots now, it broke my heart. Okay? And then we got to argue now with our Senate and our president. It's going to sign another trade deal. It's not only going to hurt the American worker, but hurt Ford Motor Company because of the manipulation of the currency. All right? These are all things. Brook Park is a little town. And folks, you out there. But what happens in the world affects us so much on a given day. NASA Glenn, everyone's like, hey, this is great. We talked to the director over there, who happened to be our bad boy, by the way, Brian. And while we're maintaining the budget there, there will be no increase in employment at NASA, so we'll have a flat revenue source. If you heard me talk before, why is this important? All right, we could, that's 50, 100, because when you look at the minimal amount generated by 200 pretty good paying jobs with benefits, what do you think one snowstorm could cost us? What do you think one flood could cost us? Why did council take money? Why are you trying to help people with their costs? It's their own fault. No, it's not. It's part of our fault. It's part of their fault. How many people, this is at the end of the line where we build all the sewers we can. I want, and I know council wants, every person to be able to leave their house on a weekend when it rains and hopefully not have water in their basement. Everybody wants that up here. Our sidewalk program, well, you're in violation, who cares, it's the city's tree. We got to keep doing these things, folks, or we're going to fall behind. And where does that money come from? All right? So I hope that all of you who came here tonight that are aggravated, you can see we have good people up here that really care. We have differences, all right? But this community has to make a decision to help us make decisions. What are you going to do to help us out? And that's where the point we're at right now, that everyone wants to avoid. We can't avoid it anymore. Just can't.
Councilman Higgins.
Mr. Chairman, still under the mayor's report, I'd be remiss if I did not thank Rudy and Estelle for coming tonight. And to mention as far as those deer go, you know, one of the biggest problems happens to be ourselves. You wouldn't believe up in the neighborhood where Estelle lives and I live, how many people feed the deer. You know, I actually stop by, you know, I don't usually call the animal control officer on people. I'll go knock on their door and try to explain to them what they're actually doing to their neighborhood. By giving a feed source, the animals will come back on a regular basis to feed. So once I got one lady on Franklin, they actually stopped feeding the animals and bleeding the water dish out. Instead, she put the hose in the driveway and turned it on in her backyard. They actually had a stream of water going down her driveway to water them. I couldn't believe it. But, you know, our own worst enemy at time with the deer is our residents and neighbors that are feeding them. And second of all, Mayor, if I may ask under your report, I know you were in some negotiations with, I believe it was Euphoria, about maybe leasing some space at the rec center. Are you still in negotiation with them, Mr. Mayor?
I figured it out. It would cost them $100,000 a year to lease the space. And I don't know if the health club can afford that, so the answer to that question is no.
Okay,
That's
thank
not,
you.
we're not giving up, we're trying to find people that have needs and stuff like that. But I think his father figured out what the investment was going to be. So.
Okay, if there's anything you think this council can do, maybe put a committee together and start doing some searching, Mayor, I'd be glad to help out.
Thank you.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also think that feeding wild animals is against our ordinances.
Just to close before we move to reports from communications, Mayor, I also received a lot of communications while I was out talking to a lot of residents frustrated over this change. And the cities have shrunk. We've all gone through a downturn in money, but you have to stay competitive if you're going to stay in business, Mayor. And Local 1099 did have seasonal part-time workers in their agreement. You guys negotiated that out. Those were put in there to keep them competitive so we can continue the service. Republic does a good job, don't get me wrong, but it's not apples to apples to what you have in this community. What you have is first-rate service, and I'm telling you, I wouldn't give it away. We're going to move the agenda. Item J, reports and communications from other departments, commissions of public officials. We'll start with our city engineer, Ed Piatak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two quick items tonight. The Smith Road sanitary sewer project is still in progress. We're down on Sylvia Road at the Sylvia intersection heading south. I believe we probably got less than 1,000 feet of mainline sewer to go in and maybe 3 manholes to install, so that project is moving forward. Next, I just wanted to address Ms. Markusek's comments earlier about the West 130th project. Brook Park is only responsible for the share of that project within our corp limit, which is just basically from Brook Park Road to 480, the south side of 480, which is only on the west side of the road. So it's a very small portion of the project that Brook Park would be participating in. The county's running that project, and the project's being funded by license plate tax dollars that the county collects. And those dollars, I don't believe those dollars would be, I don't believe the city could access those dollars for local roads anyway. So there's no line item in the budget for the West 130th project, and it's a small portion of the project. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ed. Got Councilman Higgins?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion to go out of regular order business to item N, number 1, the resolution honoring the Mid-Parks Academic Team Challenge, so they can get home and do their homeworks.
Motion to support.
There's a motion made, properly supported, under discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to N1, resolution number 7-2015.
Honoring the Berea Mid-Park Academic Challenge Team and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilman Salvatore and Council members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, Bergio, D'Amico, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Motion to suspend.
Support.
There's a motion to suspend, properly supported. Got to take a second recess here. We got 2 members missing, so we can call it roll.
Should ask him.
We got a vote, Rick. Rick, we got a vote. Rick. Michelle, please call the roll.
Higgins,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes?
Powers, D'Amico,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported, under discussion. Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Higgins,
Yes.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Powers. Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the council, and Rick Salvatore kind of guided this thing through, you kept winning, so we had to wait until you had your final situation here. We want to recognize you. So many of our young people are up here for sports, athletics, other community service, but we're very proud of your academic challenge achievement. And I asked the one gentleman, I asked 3 of them if they wanted to be mayor. They didn't give me any indication of that. And the other guy, anyhow, what is your name? Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Were you going to go to school, college, or something?
My name's Brandon Jack, and I plan on attending Northwestern University. So.
As long as you possibly mayoral candidate here, I'm not sure yet.
My name is Ben Baldwin, and I plan on attending Georgetown University.
Beautiful.
My name is David Tyler, and I plan on attending Case Western University.
Anything else you want to say while you're here?
Thank you for having us.
Mayor? Mayor, before they leave, I had a question for them. Are you guys still leading with the 725 points?
Well, the championship round has been filmed, So we're not supposed to disclose. But I'll just say it's worth watching. Yeah.
Congratulations. Sorry for keeping you so long, but it's part of an education process as well. Need a motion to go back.
So made, Mr. Chairman.
Support. Motion made, properly supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Go back to Ed Piatek. Questions for Ed Piatek? Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to Ed, over there at the crossing on Holland Road, we've discussed that a number of times. I know April 15th, I think, was the deadline, and they put the signs up for no horns. They've been blowing up like crazy. Is there anything going on with that?
I haven't heard anything. I can follow up tomorrow.
I mean, they're blowing them like there's no signs.
Yeah, I can follow up tomorrow.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ed, I do concur on that, but you know me, I'm always concurring on that train horn noise. To me, it's always just a problem. I know what our law director Neil said, but you know, sometimes an excess is a little too much. Safety's first, I have no doubt about that, but it does get out of hand a little bit. Two things that real quick, and just a real quick follow-up. How are we doing on that, as I always ask, that Smith Road project?
We're moving forward. I was told that the contractor's boring machine is back on their property, and they're running it through some tests, so I hope to see it back out on site and get going on those service connections.
Okay, yeah, I had dinner tonight with one of my planning commission colleagues, and over at the place to be, and the traffic a lot better. Traffic's moving, you got more traffic, which is great over there. Seem to be moving real good. And the other thing, I want to thank you for the help with the gentleman on Evanston. He was very much satisfied. He called back to let me know, so I thank you on that. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr.
Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed, I kept you busy a couple days. I got some phone calls, as you're aware of, from some residents. I know the project is going along pretty well there, but I did get some complaints that you're aware of. One is the trucks were turning around on Green, Sylvia, on my side, and also on the other side, making a U-turn there. And one of the trucks went into on the tree lawn, put some real deep ruts on the tree lawn there. And one of the residents tried to tamp it down and try to fill it in, and then the next day they did it again. And I called you, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate your promptness in getting that backfilled again. And also, it's been really quiet since that, but I appreciate your promptness in taking care of that issue.
No problem.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, the engineer, Mr. Piatek, can I ask you about the Sylvia Leslie project? Where are we at? How's it look? Still on schedule? When do you think it's going to be done?
Well,
When it's going to be started, then when it's going to be done?
Well, like I said last time, I anticipated going out on the street for bids later this month or early next month, and I would say that we're still on schedule for that.
Thank you.
Back to Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick follow-up. I do want to concur with my colleague, Mr. Bergio. Ed, yeah, I had that one on Paulding and Sylvia, and I did call that in. It was taken care of right away, and the gentleman that lives over there, Sir Jim, the traffic's been down immensely since then, so I thank you for that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll move the agenda. We'll go to our Service Director, Luke Hadd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just asked tonight if anybody has any questions for me. Please speak loud in the mic, because I have 2 ear infections and I have about 20% of my hearing, so half this meeting I haven't heard. I just been trying to read lips.
You're lucky.
We've been continuing some discussion here about yard waste this evening. We've been doing the yard waste. Flyers haven't been sent out. We haven't been getting calls. I'm sure you all have been getting calls also. We continue at this time to do that after the Memorial Day holiday, and then we will have roll-offs at the service garage for residents to bring their stuff there. Residents are bringing their stuff down now. I have a roll-off there that's for contaminated waste only, which is the stuff we pull out of the sewers and the stuff that we pull off the streets. I have people coming down when they shouldn't be there, dumping their yard waste into that container. Just let them know there are signs up, do not do that. You could be prosecuted if you do that. Please, I don't want to prosecute anybody. Those roll-offs are about $900 a piece to take to the certified dump that's handles that type of waste. Also, we've been continuing patching some streets. We haven't had the sewer crew out in a while as far as the Vector goes because we did start yard waste and that takes up 6 of my men at this time. This week I will not have the street sweeper out because it takes up my men on yard waste. We're doing sewer lateral repairs. It seems like every time we get one done, we get 2 or 3 more come in. So it's keeping those guys busy. That's 3 guys on that crew. The water breaks, we've been getting those pretty much wrapped up, and once those are done, that crew can start repairing the catch basins. We have dozens of catch basins in the city that need to be repaired. We'll do our best. Just to let you know, this week I have nobody on vacation, and every man is working. I finally got one guy out to start cutting grass today. Yesterday they were cutting the ball fields out here in the rain to get those done. So we are strapped with men. Ms. Powers, you asked what it costs to do yard waste. Back in March when we had Mr. Kidder here from Republic, I passed out a flyer to report to every councilman here, and those numbers are in there. Okay, Mr. D'Amico, you said let's go and put the waste in the blue can. That's a good idea. We thought about that. But if we were to automate a yard waste, we went out and bought 2 more automated trucks, and we bought another 7,500 containers for yard waste, which probably for some homes wouldn't be enough, and some homes would be one too many because not everybody does yard waste. We have some homes that put out a half a dozen cans. There's homes that put out 20 cans. And that cost for there, with the existing lease payments we have on the 3 trucks that we have now, would be $1.85 million. And since that meeting we had when Mr. Kidder was here, we've already put $20,000 into those trucks as far as tires, repairs, the 3-year maintenance plan that needs to be done on those trucks. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through the chair to Louis. Louis, what I guess I was getting at was when we changed over to the blue can, was to take the blue can we exist with today, not purchasing new ones, putting the grass in there, and doing the recycling like we used to when they had the trucks come around and pick it up on the lawn. So I wasn't looking at an added cost. Did you think so, or?
Well, Mr. D'Amico, through the chair, the mayor and I and a committee from the 1099, we searched every aspect that we could do to make this better, keep the services that we have. So we did look at all avenues on that.
Well, I just wanted to know, let you know, it wasn't an added cost I was talking about. That's all. That's all. Thank you.
Councilman Mancini.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lou, on that Saturday.
Speak up, Jim.
I'm sorry, Louis. On that Saturday from 7 to 3, will you have someone down there to watch on that?
Yes, that's our plan. So we do, we do have a crew on the weekends, basically for sewer calls. And I have a crew, one of the members on the weekend is a specialist on the lift stations. So we do have 7-day coverage on the lift stations, especially through the rainy season.
Glad we got somebody on. Lou, the other day I want to thank you personally. I mean, I gave you about 3 things this week, maybe 4. And and actually they were outside of rubbish, and you did get them handled for me. I appreciate that, okay? I really do. So the residents appreciate it also. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought we always had to put memos into the mayor to get things done, but
well, I did.
Through the chair to the service director, Mr. Kayat, if the scenario, if automated trucks going down the street and the big cans, it's a windy day, somebody puts the big can up against a telephone pole or something to try to hold it up, how would your drivers be expected to handle that?
Depends how it's leaning against the telephone pole, I would guess. Is it the back end, the side, or what?
Back end with the flap open.
With a bungee cord around it?
Yeah.
Well, number one, they really can't see that can when they pick that up. They're doing it with cameras, because it's back behind them, and they have a screen. And if it's a black bungee cord wrapped up to a pole, and it's good. If he doesn't see it, he doesn't see it.
Okay, well, I figured you'd figure they'd get out and move it away from the pole.
Well, he got out a lot of times today because a lot of cans were laying on the side.
And that brings I'd like to bring the attention to everybody that there is a rule, you're supposed to put all your recyclables in bags in the container. So what happens is when you get a windy day like this, you don't put them in the bags, you put everything in there loose. The container goes over and your street's full of garbage, plastic flying down the street. So maybe we should stress that at some point, next mailer or whatever, that you need to put your recyclables in a plastic bag and then put it in your can.
Well, I know I'm guilty of not doing that.
Thank you.
Lou, before we move, you said you haven't had the street sweeper out lately because you don't have the manpower. What do we pay for that street sweeper? Do you remember?
Well, I haven't had it out today, Councilman.
Yeah, I understand. But
With state purchasing, I think it was like $213,000.
did you look at contracting that out before you purchased that?
Yes, I did.
What was the cost for that?
Well, I think you had it done, you contracted at one time with,
I had numbers.
yeah, well, that was double. 16,000 a sweep.
Okay. Yeah, I'd appreciate if you could forward those to council. That's all I have. We're going to move the agenda now to our safety director, Dave Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report tonight, sir.
Thank you, Dave. We've got a question, Councilman Mancini.
Dave, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know on that issue on Smith Road, that could have been a little, maybe gone a little further than we needed. I appreciate your advice on how to handle that. I thank you very much. It was very professional. It helped us out a lot. Just so you know, the residents were able to talk amongst themselves and get that worked out a little bit when I didn't think that. And I don't know how far it might go, and I appreciate that a little bit there. So I have to say that publicly. I thank you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad it worked out.
Seeing no other questions, we'll go to our law director, Neil Jameson.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Neil. Any members of council have questions to Neil? Seeing none, we'll go to our recreation director, Mary Ann Fields.
Well, as Louis said, he doesn't have anybody on vacation this week and he's got abundance of staff. I have one of my employees that's been out for 2 weeks. So we are very, very hurting. Andres was hospitalized. He had surgery, so he's been out for 2 weeks, but I'm very happy to say that we were able to get all of our baseball teams drafted and selected, and they are beginning practice this week. So we did accomplish that. So be ready for all the baseball teams on the practice fields. And on May 2nd, we're going to have an event called Spring Into Your Park. What we're asking is for all the residents to come out and volunteer. We're starting at the recreation center. We're going to plant flowers. We're going to weed. Please bring shovels, rakes, gloves. If you guys can come up and attend, it's from 9 to 1. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Mary Ann. We'll move the agenda to our finance director, Greg Single.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer a couple questions I had asked of me at the April 7th council meeting, Councilman Salvatore asked the savings for the animal shelter once it was moved from its location on 150th Street into the I'll call old building department. So Councilman Salvatore, that savings this year is estimated at about $17,200. Thank you, Greg. You're welcome. And Councilwoman Powers had asked a question as to the cost to reopen fire station number 2. So with the help of Dave Burns, thank you, Dave, for calculating some figures for us today, and also with the help of Marty Healy, my assistant. We worked up those figures earlier. The cost for this year, which is a 10.5-month period, when the station was open through the end of the year, the cost is roughly $576,500, and then that cost annualized over a 12-month period is roughly $659,000. So that's the hiring of 2, or we're bringing back 2 firefighter paramedics, plus the overtime, plus the increased cost in utilities. So that was that answer. We did get through the tax season. The tax department did a very, very good job working through fairly long lines for individuals that were filing their tax returns on the 14th and 15th of April. So I commend them for the job that they did and all the paperwork that they did process. And that concludes my report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Greg. And Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. through the chair to the finance director, Mr. Single, how many more years do we have left on the payments for our garbage trucks, the automated trucks?
Through the chair to Councilman Troyer, we will be making the 4th payment this year, and then it's a 7-year lease. So four payments, 3 at the end of this year.
Okay, so, thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, we'll move the agenda. Item K, other communications, petitions under verbal approval, introduction of new legislation. We have 2. I have an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to prepare specifications and to advertise for bids, and further authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with the lowest and/or best bidder for the collection of solid waste, yard waste, recyclable materials, and bulk materials, and declaring an emergency. Will place this in the Service Committee. And we have an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Greater Cleveland Auto Auction Public Auctions for the purpose of disposing of obsolete city vehicles and declaring an emergency. These are both introduced by Mayor Coyne. Will place this in Finance. We have nothing under L. We go to item M, introduction of resolutions and ordinances under first reading. Number 1 is resolution number 9-2015.
Accepting the recommendations and approving the minutes of the Housing Council on the City of Brook Park's Community Reinvestment Area, parentheses CRA, and the parentheses agreements, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just, so everybody knows, I'm on this committee. This is for tax abatements. You know, we have tax abatements on certain properties, and what we have to do is every year with the building department has to go out and check them out, make sure they're in compliance, so we okay the continued tax abatement. This is what this is about. So I'd like to move to suspend.
Support. Motion to suspend properly supported. Under discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Bowers.
just so that the audience knows what we're doing, the tax abatement is for people who have improved their property and they get a tax abatement, or they do not have to pay their real property taxes for a certain period of time. Is that correct, Mr.
Troyer?
Yes, either improvement or, new building of some sort, housing, whatever.
Okay, and I would just like to read these people, the names. At 15601 Brook Park Road, we have Archer Realty, who has improved their property, and they're getting a tax abatement. West 140th is Ohio State Highway Patrol. West 148 is Kathleen Horchie, and I don't know what she might have done to her property. But Sandwell LLC is Reddy's Pizza. Venus LLD Liability Company is the Holiday Inn. And BWI Syndicate Inc. is her Humanic Funeral Home. And so we, the residents of this community, are paying our taxes, but we are giving these companies tax breaks. And I think the American way is that if you're going to build a company, you build a company, and I see no reason why we should be giving tax breaks to companies. Richard Hugh Kerharlick was the last one, and he only put a porch on his property, so that wasn't a good enough improvement to get him a tax abatement. But I just wanted you to know what this is all about.
Councilman Mancini.
Real quick, Mayor, before you go. It's just the abatement on the addition or on the new building, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what, okay. I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Call the roll on the motion.
Troyer.
Yes.
Bergia.
Yes.
Mancini.
Yes.
Powers.
No.
Higgins.
Yes.
D'Amico.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Suspension's passed.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt or properly supported. Under discussion.
Just one question under adoption. Those are all the questions should have been asked in the first place, but I'll let that go. But to the chair, to Mr. Troyer, Did you went out and you inspected all these and everybody was in compliance?
No, I did not. I asked a few of them I did, but I took the word of the building department, and they said they inspected it and everything was good.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. I did inspect all of them. I went to all of them and they all were in compliance. And I had questions about it and everybody complied with it.
Very good, thank you.
Call the roll on adoption.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Higgins?
Yes.
Resolution number 9-2015 is passed under suspension of the rules. Item number 2, ordinance number 9964-2015.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter in a demolition program agreement with the county of Cuyahoga, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend?
Support.
The motion made, properly supported, under discussion. Shall call a roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Higgins?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Suspension's passed.
Move to adopt.
Support.
The motion to adopt, properly supported, under discussion. Shall call a roll on adoption.
Troyer?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Switch them? Okay.
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Higgins?
Yes.
Ordinance number 9964-2015 is passed under suspension of rules. We'll move the agenda to item N, item 2 under second reading, resolution number 8-2015.
Introduced by Councilman Salvatore and Council members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, Burgio, D'Amico, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne. This one's already adopted.
I already did that.
8.
Pass that.
Resolution number 8-2015, introduced by Councilman Burgio and Council members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, D'Amico, Salvatore, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne, in support of House Bill 60, Dick Goddard's Act, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend?
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported, under discussion. Shall call a roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Suspension's passed.
Move to adopt?
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported, under discussion. All
Yes.
being done. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I voted yes on this because I do admire what he's doing, and I'm in agreement with it. I read extensively the bill, and the sad thing is that our animal shelter here is in such deplorable condition that it wouldn't meet the standards that Dick Carter sets in his proposal.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. How can you make a statement like that?
Because I have seen,
How can you, have you been to the new fire, where we put it in the firehouse?
I haven't been to the new one, but I've been to the old
Then
one.
why are you making a
and-
statement like that?
Well,
I'm
because
sorry,
I
I'm
do
sorry,
not
Mr. Chairman, if I
have,
may.
Let's hold,
Okay.
let's,
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is, you and I talked, this is a project we worked on together, I thought. Okay, so therefore, you haven't been to our new facility yet.
no, I've heard about it.
okay,
Why don't you and I go there? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll do that.
call the roll on adoption, please.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
A resolution number 8-2015 is passed under suspension of rules. Good item O. Third reading, we have 2. Ordinance number 9961-2015.
Introduced by Councilman Mancini, amending section 1313.04 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled General Residential Building Permit Fees and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Troyer.
I have an issue with raising the residential building permits because it costs anything we raise, anything we do to raise the cost of the permits to residential buildings is going to go right to the resident. I don't want to do anything that raises costs on the homeowners. Some of these These increases go from 20% to 150% increase. Also, in the original proposal, we were going to eliminate the free permits, and I would absolutely not want to do both of those. That was in the original proposal, not in this legislation. We want the residents to be able to fix up their home, and not make it more costly. Therefore, I would be voting no on the adoption of this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Mancini.
I didn't know that we were going on that, Mr. Councilman. We were eliminating, I didn't know that. On the original one.
It was in the original proposal, it wasn't on this
There are
ordinance. but it was-
two separate pieces of legislation. I think that's been explained about 100 times.
No, there was two pieces of legislation and
proposed, but
an
it's
extra
not,
proposal.
it's not
One
in the
at
body
a
of this
time.
legislation. Mr. Chairman, it's not in the body of this legislation. Two distinct issues. Yes, we did.
I already said that.
Right. So therefore, it's not related to this at all.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, also is that we are still below most suburbs surrounding us from 5, 10, 15, 20 miles. We are well below still on our lots for this piece of, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, I want to add that the whole thing was, if we remember, with all the privatization we talk about here and there, that this building department, Mr. Hurst, I commend him, with the mayor and working through this whole thing together, came about with these proposals to go ahead and self-sustain. Is that right, Mr. Hurst? So, so I think that's a good thing that we need to continue to pass this. Thank you.
Councilwoman Powers.
I agree with Councilman Troyer that it is just an extra burden on the homeowner, and if you are going to encourage people to fix up their homes, why burden them with the extra expense? And we are not other communities. We are Brook Farm, and we do not need to be comparing ourselves to other communities and saying, well, they've got a higher rate. I think we are a unique city, we're a good city, and we need people that are looking at, as Mr. Councilman Troyer said, some of these are quadrupled and more in the amount of the fee. So if someone were going to put in new windows or put in an awning or whatever to improve their property, they might decide, I'd like to do it, but I don't want to do it with this extra fee. So that's all I have.
Councilman Mancini.
To my colleague, Mrs. Powers, quadruple or more, you're sure of that? You're sure them are the number, quadruple or more?
You didn't question Mr. Mancini when he
Mr.
gave
Mancini.
you when he gave you a number that said some of them went from $20 to he gave you a number. Would you repeat that, please, Mr. Roy?
Kibby, you introduced this piece.
Right.
So I would, Councilwoman, I would say that he would be the one that you direct your questions to, because he was the one that wrote it.
To the next one. As far as with other cities, again, when I brought this piece forward, what I had said is, and I know the mayor had said something after me, are we going to keep all our fees low? And I remember I going into $20 rec passes, so many other things that we were so low for so long. And I would like to ask Mr. Hurst, when was the last time these were raised? I mean, my point is that sooner or later, we got to start budgeting up a little bit. I mean, we have to get back in reality in 2015. Go ahead. I'd like to bring our building commissioner, Mr. Hurst, to
The last time our fees were raised, I wasn't here. I've been here 12 years, so it was before that.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Thank
can,
you, Mr.
point of clarification for the public. This is something we do periodically, all right? There are fees that have to be addressed. In our case, we wanted to make you read about another community saving $100,000 by outsourcing their building department. Well, I don't know if that's correct or not. But we challenged the director, and one of the things he made me and Greg Siegel aware of is that we haven't adjusted this since the last time I was here. So in reality, by addressing this particular issue, we will have the resources for the building department to be on the plus side rather on the subsidy side. So, and it's not a massive thing, and when we do the free things for many years, I think it was Rick Salvatore and I started this way back when, in June, July, and August, our folks didn't have to pay for permits. And what we want to talk about, the dynamics of that. So basically, this isn't a money gouging thing, it's basically to upgrade our operations that haven't been upgraded in a decade. And that's it, nothing more, nothing less.
Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of summarize this, and I mean, it is up there to third reading. We've had plenty of time to discuss it. It has been debated. The directors were challenged to what they could do to keep from privatizing their departments. Mr. Hurst did an excellent job coming up with these suggestions. It just didn't happen overnight. There's a lot of thought that went into this, and I'm kind of disappointed that we have gone 3 readings and not one time were any amendments brought forward to reduce the cost in any of these departments. And I commend Mr. Mancini for putting this out. Of course, some people are going to say, why are you raising the fees? Well, the fees are being raised, just like the mayor said, they haven't been raised in many years. And nobody wants to see the building department privatized. And Ted Hurst went out and found ways to make it so he can keep this department alive and under the control of the city of Brook Park. And I think it's something that is very necessary to do, and I want to thank Mr. Mancini for bringing it forward, and I want to thank for all the hard work to Mr. Hurst that went into this, and I'd like to call the roll, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm looking at the ordinance and it says it was last changed in 2009. So I believe that's, let me see, August 2009. And, you know, 150% is too much. Thank you.
Need a motion.
So made, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion made now.
Support.
Seconded. Michelle, call a roll on the motion.
Higgins?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Bergio?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Ordinance number 9961-2015 is passed. Go to item 2, ordinance number 9962-2015. Sure.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter in a contract between Brewer Garrett Company and the city of Brook Park and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Council, whether to vote on this, yes or no, on adoption was a tough decision. On one hand, this is a 6-month contract, goes from January this year through June. On one hand, it should have been brought forward last year. I believe it should have been a no-bid contract. I mean, it is a no-bid contract. I believe it should have been bid. These contracts should go out to bid. And then on the other hand, this company's been working for us for almost 4 months now with no contract. They need to get paid. I mean, they've been working without a protection of a contract. I think we have a moral and ethical responsibility to see that they get paid. So, I've been back and forth on this. Thank you.
What's council's pleasure? Councilwoman Powers.
Yes. We've had the original agreement was back in 2002, and yes, we do need to pay them, but I cannot vote for a contract to continue this, because if it is just a maintenance agreement and we are paying $10,000 a month for maintenance on a system that we keep hearing is falling apart, and I just don't think we should continue this. And if we do, it should be not on an annual basis, or there's no time frame. So if we are going to do this, it should be on a month-to-month basis. We could, May and June, and starting the 1st of May, we should put out bid for bids, not the RFQs, but put it in the paper so that any company out there that's doing this kind of business has the opportunity to, I'm sure they look at the papers all the time to see what's being advertised, and they would have the opportunity to put in a bid. So that would be the fair way to do it. Is other cities, if you look at the Sun News or the Plain Dealer, every week the Sun News has bid contracts in there. They're advertising for bids. And so I think that it's time that we start advertising for bids instead of just doing these no bid contracts.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilman Mancini.
I don't know about other cities, but I do know that we've been working with Brook Fair for a long time. I know that overall they do a pretty good job. To me, 2 months is kind of a short time frame. I definitely concur with my colleague, Mr. Troyer, that they definitely need to get paid. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Higgins.
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. I find it kind of ironic that Councilwoman Powers is comparing us to other cities when just the last piece of legislation, she said we shouldn't compare ourselves to other cities. That's the only point I wanted to make there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, move to adopt.
Motion to adopt is properly supported. Michelle, call a roll on adoption.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Persia?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Higgins?
No.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance number 9962 is passed. Being no further business, the council meeting is adjourned.